This is why I was put here, to create music, to create art. It's something I've been groomed to do for as long as I can remember. But it's a beautiful thing when you're good at something, right? You put it down and you pick it back up, and it's almost like you never left.
Hi, I'm Hey Betty, and I'm here with J Loryn. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to get into a little bit more about where she comes from. I'm going to ask her a few questions about herself. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get into it. So what is your introduction to music?
I'd have to say it started when I was 4. I grew up in the church, so I grew up singing in the church, and it was just something I guess I'd say was probably passed down from, my grandma to my aunt, and then to me. So definitely started early.
What obstacles have you had to face being a Black woman in the industry?
Well, I think it kind of all ties into just being a Black woman in general. If I had to, I guess, limit it to just the industry, I would say it's probably a lot of not fitting the mold of what, America, the country we live in, would call the ideal, pop star or celebrity. So it definitely comes with, struggles, feeling like I don't fit the mold of, what other artists might look like. And I'm also a little bit older. And my vibe is just kind of like what I want it to be. I'm not following, the commercial style of music. So there are a lot of struggles that kind of come along with that, as a combination.
Gotcha. Do you feel that there's a pressure to fit in and to blend in with other artists?
There's a little bit of pressure, but not enough pressure to get me to alter the goals that I have set for myself and set for my music.
Nice. That kind of brings me to my next question. How do you differentiate your sound from other sounds?
I think that's just comes with being myself, really just going with my ear, how I want things to sound, and being adamant and persistent about the way I want my music to turn out. So really just, kind of keeping a level head. When I'm in the studio recording or, when I'm in my creative sessions or talking to other artists, it's really just not getting caught up in what other people maybe expect me to be. And just, taking a deep breath and being me.
Amen. I'm here for that.
Yeah.
How do you balance your art with your family and friend relationships?
Well, funny you ask, because not a lot of people know that I do have a son. And so to tie that all in my music career, that's part of the reason why it took me so long to start. He's at an age now where I'm able to be a little bit more independently creative. And so I can cater to more of my creative, style, as opposed to, maybe some other artists that don't have kids or, aren't really tight knit with their family. It's really just a balance, for me. If I'm balancing the time I spend with my son, that goes almost directly into, how I balance my music, how I, utilize my time, whether it be creative or otherwise.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you think it's easier now to make music and put stuff out there, or do you think it was easier in the 70s or back in the day?
That is a good question. To be honest, I think that each era kind of had its struggles and challenges. So I can't say that it's tougher to do it now as opposed to then, but I'll say that there are different challenges now as opposed to then. Whereas now you have a billion people that want to be famous and they want their music to be heard and, they want to pretty much share their art with the world. So right now, if you're not doing music because you love it and not doing it with intention, then that's going to come across, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be famous either. So it's a bit of a challenge, here and now. But I'd say the challenges are probably equal, if not the same, just different types of challenges from now as opposed to, earlier.
Got you. Would you say we live in kind of a microwave culture where people just want to throw things together real quick and release, auto-tune and everything instead
Shake that
of getting into
Laffy
the love of it? Yeah.
Pop, lock, and drop it.
Exactly.
We have so many people that want to be these one-hit wonders, and it's really for a check, so you kind of have to separate yourself as an artist too. Like, am I going to be this person that's just doing music right now because it's hot and I want the attention, or am I doing music because I want to share my art with the world? And so you really have to be intentional again. I think it just goes back to intention for sure.
Yeah. I want to ask you something. Tell me about a time you almost quit.
Last week? No. Let me see. A time that I almost quit. Well, actually, there was a time that I did quit. So about 3 years ago, I lost my mother. And in losing her, I was singing every day. I was singing in the church. I was singing outside of the church. I was just fully connected to my music. And when I lost her, I did feel like I lost essentially a part of myself. And with that, it was almost like I had to, it took me about a year and some change to really like gather how I was feeling. And she was kind of the reason why I got back into music. She's what has connected me to music my entire life. And at one point I just woke up and said, you know what, one day, today's the day that I'm just, no longer going to live in this moment of, feeling defeated because my mom's not here to experience this, but do it for her, right? Like,
right.
Let her live on through my music. So. Exactly.
That's awesome. Are there any artists that you have been compared to as far as sound goes?
Yes, plenty. And I mean, I think that's there are many reasons why. I think people just, sometimes it's based off of how they perceive you physically. Yes. Sometimes it's based off of one song. So definitely. And if I had to name a few, it'd definitely be Aaliyah. I've gotten Aaliyah a lot. I've gotten Janae. To name a few. But yeah, I've definitely been compared, and it's kind of like when you're compared, it's like absolutely not. There's no way that I sound just like Aaliyah. That's a compliment, right? But
yes.
That's another reason why I'm so serious about the music that I do and the intention I have behind it, because I need it to be different. I need my music to be, when someone hears my song, I need it to be, oh, that's J Loryn. You know what I mean? Like, right. I need that sound to be almost like a staple. When people hear my music, I want them to know, like, I know exactly who that is, as opposed to, who is that,
Right.
So.
If you weren't doing music, what would you be doing right now?
Everything that I'm doing right now and not music. So, full-time job, helping my son with school, post-COVID, kids are home now, so he's a little bit older, so he's able to work more independently, taking care of my grandparents, just being family-oriented. And possibly even diving into, other career paths that I've kind of put on the back end. Yeah.
All right. So if you could give advice to any up-and-coming artist who's listening to your music and being inspired to want to get their work out there, what would you tell them?
Start now. Don't make excuses. You're always going to feel like someone's better. You're always going to feel like you're not good enough. You're always going to be able to find a way to pick yourself apart because you are your worst critic. But just start now. And start where you are and work your way up. Work hard. Don't make excuses. And be committed to the work ethic.
How important is it to have the right relationships around you as far as mentors and...
Crucial.
And other people in the industry as well? Because it's a tough industry. Some people want to see you win and some people see you as opposition. So they won't show you how they got there. So how do you differentiate?
That's a great question too. That's a great question, Betty. I think that for me, I realized that too, starting out, I was kind of doing everything on my own, and then, I was introduced to, a couple different people, and we kind of built this network that allowed us to be creative in a safe place. But it also created this accountability, to the point where it was like, if I don't show up for you and you don't show up for me, we're letting each other down, right? So having that accountability, having people that you can trust, because like you said, it's a cutthroat industry, and a lot of people don't care. A lot of people just kind of, and some people may start out caring about your music and, who you are as an artist, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be how they look at it, the entire, time or run of your career. So it's really just paying attention. You got to pay close attention to people. You have to pay close attention to everyone that's around you, like almost how you would as a woman, right. Being very, on guard, keeping your head on the swivel, as my dad says. Just really being aware of the people that you have around you and not being afraid to, correct certain things if they don't feel right, and just going with your gut. I don't feel like your gut lies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Do you write all of your own music, or do you have co-writers who write with you?
I was excited to answer that one. Yes. So I'd say 90% of my songs I write. I did just recently, I do have a co-writer who's my A&R, and he writes phenomenal music, and he was kind of the one that pushed me out of that, you know, don't feel like you have to have all the bars. Like, you can outsource for, you know, this sort of material. You can outsource for this content. And in doing that, I'm so glad I did, because the songs that I'm creating now, they don't necessarily have to be exactly how I structured them. They just have to be good songs, you know. It has to be good music. So I think that's what I'm focused on now, more so than I was when I first started.
How important is consistency with putting out material?
It's very important. I'll say it's very important to be consistent. Putting out material, that's more of a strategic sort of process. Like, when you're making music, you can make 100 songs, right? But determining when you're going to release those songs, how you're going to market those songs, that's a whole nother category, right? Exactly. So I think it's probably more important to be strategic about what you're putting out and consistent with that strategicness, as opposed to being consistent with just putting out songs, right? You don't want to be that one person that's, you know, always popping out, you know, music and maybe not marketing the first song as good as you could have because you're focused on the second song, you know? So just really taking your time with it and moving based on what feels right. Nice. So that's what I try to do.
How important is it to have a thick skin in this industry? Because there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of doors that are knocked on that may not open right away. How do you keep going?
It is extremely important, and I think that kind of goes back to one of your previous questions of, you know, just how you mentioned it being a cutthroat industry. So I think that's just like in life, right? Like, we have a lot of things in life that kind of push us to be our better versions of ourselves and operating at a higher frequency. Because if you're not, then you are kind of like chewed up and spit out. Right. You know, so having a tough skin, I think, is just really believing in yourself, and not really going against what you know you are, you know, not allowing people to doubt you, and sometimes just not asking for people's opinions, you know, just really just being true to who you are and, you know, being comfortable with who you are. And that's what I'm noticing now about developing as an artist. Is so important to just stay true to who I am, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's perfect, but the more you allow people to kind of get in your ear about things, you know, that can really, like, dull down your progression. That can really dull down the overall vibe of what you're trying to create. So definitely important to have tough skin in this industry. Yeah.
Nice. I think people think the music industry is such a quick thing. Like, you see it online with social media, TikTok, and people getting famous overnight, you know? So a lot of people think, oh, I can just put out this record today and I'll have 1 million views by tomorrow, you know? So it's just about being consistent. You got to have that thick skin, be ready to keep hearing no over and over.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people do it for clout.
Yes.
You know? So it's like, it's one thing to do it for clout. It's another thing to do it because you love to do it, right?
Right.
It's another thing to do it because you know that is how you express yourself. And as I tell people, it sounds very cliche, but I truly believe, like, this is why I was put here. To create music, to create art. It's something I've been groomed to do for as long as I can remember. But it's a beautiful thing when you're good at something, right? You put it down and you pick it back up, and it's almost like you never left. You know, it's like you sing songs and they heal you.
Yes,
know what
they
I mean?
do.
Music is healing, and music is universal. It's one of those things that, like good content, it never dies. You know?
Absolutely. Which brings me to my next question. Do you think every song needs to be released?
I don't. I don't, because some songs, it's probably a waste of money now. I'm not going to the studio and recording. If I'm not releasing that song, then it's not getting recorded. But I think some music is, you know, part of the process, that artistic process, you know, just pushes you into, like, a song you would write in your notebook. When you open up your notebook and you just hear a melody in your head and you're writing it down, or recording it on your phone, or however you know, feel comfortable doing it. I think that all the music you write doesn't necessarily have to be released, but it's all a part of the process, right?
Right.
All a part of that creative process.
Exactly. I was actually talking with your A&R some time back, and he said that if your music, if it helps one person and that person is you, then that's all you needed it for, you know? Because we're talking about poetry and stuff, and how sometimes we'll write and it ends up healing us. It may not get out there to other people, but if it helped you, it did what it was supposed to do.
That's real. I agree 100%. That's very eloquently put. again. But no, I feel like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like when you think about it, sometimes our music and our hobbies, or I wouldn't even call it a hobby, but sometimes our gifts are not for everybody. You know, sometimes certain parts of your gifts you don't have to share with everyone. Sometimes that's for you, and it's okay to keep it to yourself. You know.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Definitely.
I am so glad you joined me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for winding down with me.
Yes.
Stay
Cheers.
black, stay beautiful.
Pulse pound when we hugging, heartbeat sound like a trap song bumping. I need you to take your time while we loving. Isn't she lovely type of woman? Baby, set the mood.